The early years of the Cold War was an exciting time for aeronautical engineers. Governments were happy to spend big bucks on blue sky projects, and you can't get much more blue sky than the VZ-9 Avrocar. Despite its flying saucer shape, it would be more accurate to think of it as an hilariously expensive hovercar, since it had such a difficult time taking flight. The Avrocar was designed around the so-called Coandă effect. What's the Coandă effect? Put simply, this is the tendency of a fluid jet to stay attached to a convex surface. It was named as such because it was the Romanian inventor Henri Coandă who was first to recognize its potential application in aircraft design. The Avrocar would exploit this effect to provide lift and thrust from a single turbo-rotor. It was the brainchild of Jack Frost, a pioneering British aircraft inventor. Frost was hopeful that the Avrocar would provide the coveted VTOL capability. That is, it would be able to have both vertical takeoff and landing and still perform as an aircraft. There was great interest in the VTOL aircraft at this time, the main reason being that engineers were aware that conventional aircraft was an aerodynamically inefficient design and only managed to fly because of its wings, which gave it lift, and its engine, which gave it the power to overcome the drag of all the load of the plane. This necessitated vulnerable landing and takeoff zones that can accommodate conventional aircraft. It was understood that any future European war would start with a full nuclear exchange that would eliminate most air bases. As a result, aircraft would need to operate from limited air bases, roads and fields in order to maintain second strike capability. Unconventional aircraft would help provide strategic options. The more unconventional, the better, seemingly. Frost's Special Projects Group, set up by Avro Canada in 1952, for whom Frost worked for and designed the Avrocar, studied the pancake engine, a jet turbine that was arranged in a circular design. While it never really left the planning stages, the Canadian government lost interest in the project and funding for it came to an end. The Americans were interested in the project, however, seeing the vast potential of VTOL aircraft, and with their funding, Frost was able to continue with his research. Early projections of the aircraft see it as a quick fighter that could reach incredible speeds of 1,500 miles per hour and at high altitudes, but it was never able to get off the ground, almost literally. After the U.S. Air Force gave up on it, the U.S. Army took it over and envisioned a high-end helicopter rather than a quick fighter pilot. This too proved impossible to realize, and the project was finally canceled in September 1961. With its disc shape, very much like a flying saucer, the Avrocar was 18 feet in diameter and 3.5 feet thick. The airframe was mostly aluminum. Pilot control was through a single side-mounted control stick. There was a crew of 2 pilots, positioned in separate cockpits. One of the test pilots, Fred J. Drinkwater, described it as very difficult to fly, saying that trying to fly it was like balancing on a beach ball. The 124-blade turbo-rotor sat in the center of the equilateral triangle, with most of the rotor's thrust going straight down through an opening. The power for the rotor came from 6 turbojet engines that were attached. These engines would then be used to create a cushion of air beneath the aircraft, the so-called ground effect. Frost predicted the aircraft would be capable of speeds of around Mach 4, which is around 1,000 miles per hour, and an operational ceiling of 100,000 feet. Just put that into perspective. The F-15 Eagle can achieve speeds of Mach 2.5 and an altitude of 65,000 feet. Imagine the military edge the United States would have had in the 1950s if this baby had actually worked. U.S. military and Air Force personnel were giddy with excitement about the potential applications of the Avrocar. It wasn't just its fighting capability that captivated them. An Air Force officer named Bernard Lindenbaum remembered hearing one general say they would not need to buy any more helicopters as the Avrocar would be a game changer. The first Avrocar came out of the factory in May 1959. From 9th of June to 7th of October 1959, it was tested in a static hover range. It was soon apparent that the Avrocar wouldn't be able to get any lift. In effect, it was unable to take off with anything more than 3,150 pounds, a major problem to say the least, especially considering that the weight of the aircraft without any pilots inside was 4,285 pounds. Each test flight revealed new issues and new fixes were implemented, but ultimately it was doomed. Unfortunately, it became clear that the Avrocar was unstable in forward flight as the aerodynamic center of pressure was ahead of the center of gravity. All of the various test flights demonstrated that this flying saucer was never able to take off much more than a tiny amount from the Earth. It did hover in a sort of cool way, though. The highest it ever got to was about 3 feet off the ground, and it never went faster than 34 miles per hour. Funding for the doomed project thus ran out, and Frost's subsequent proposed modified designs were not accepted. The second Avrocar model has logged about 75 flight hours at the end of testing. The Avrocar was a complete failure. It could not lift itself safely more than a few feet off the ground. Its design limited high-speed performance, and it also happened to be accompanied by unbearable heat and exhaust noise, making it impractical. Thanks for watching Decode. While you are here, go ahead and click on one of these 2 videos on your screen.